Well, hi, and I hope you're having a good day today. I'd like to talk about taking on life with a good attitude, or what I call attitude makes a difference. The Bible says in Proverbs 17:22, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones." Let's read that again. "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones." I heard a story of this grandpa who laid down on the couch, and he was in the living room, and he took this nap, and while he was sleeping, his grandkids thought they'd pull a prank on him, so they brought in Limburger cheese, and they smeared it on his mustache. Well, he finally woke up, and when he did, he took a good whiff, and he goes, "You know what? This living room stinks." And then he walked out, and he got into the hallway, and he went, "This hallway stinks." And then he went into the kitchen, and he goes, "Oh, the kitchen stinks." And then he walked outside and he went, "The whole world stinks." You know, there are some people that have that attitude. It's kind of like to them, the whole world stinks. Now, we as Christian people ought to have a good attitude. And in the Bible, we find a lot of good folks. They have great attitudes and they stand out. I'm thinking of Caleb right now. In Joshua 14:11, here's a guy who's like 110 years old. And he says, "As yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now for war, both to go out and to come in." Now, how do you beat an attitude like that on an old fellow who's over 100? But he says, "My strength is as it was then, so it is now." He says, both to go out and to come in. And by the way, that's an old Jewish expression, to go in and out. It's speaking of taking on life and the daily responsibilities, things like that, and just doing it without complaining. Seeing the best in the day, as it were. You know that both the hummingbird and the vulture fly over the deserts of our nations, and all that the vulture can see is rotting meat, because that's what he's looking for. They thrive on that diet, rotten meat. Now, the hummingbird, they ignore that smelly flesh of dead animals, and instead they look for the colorful blossoms of desert plants. The vulture lives on what was. Think about that. They live on the past. They fill themselves with what is dead and gone. But hummingbirds live on what is. They seek new life. They fill themselves with freshness and life every single day. So each bird finds what they're looking for. We all do. Now, Christians have more reason to find the joy in life than anyone else. And it all really is based on our attitude. Now, the word attitude is not found in the Bible. Okay? But neither is Trinity. Neither is rapture or missionary. So what is an attitude? Well, it's our demeanor. It's our state of mind. It's our mood, our outlook, our perspective, our manner, our disposition, our feelings, our reactions, our temperament, our character, the spirit of a person. And though attitude is not mentioned in the Bible, it's really kind of hinted at or referred to somewhere around over 460 times. You know, Job 32:8 says, "There is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty gives him understanding." And how true that is. There is a spirit in a man. And so we all have this spirit or this attitude, and it will make or break us. Really, the difference in life will make or break you. I know of some Christian people, and they have bad attitudes. They have rotten attitudes. They brighten up a room when they leave it. And so what about your attitude today? Let's talk about the symptoms of an attitude. Some people have an attitude, for example, of uselessness. I'm a no count. I just get in everybody's way. Why am I here? And somebody so well said that a useless life is an early death. Somebody who has the attitude of uselessness, being a no count, being a nobody. Uselessness is a bad attitude, when actually there's so much that we could do in life. You know that the noted English architect, Sir Christopher Wren, and I've been to Europe and I've seen some of his incredible buildings that he designed. Well, he was a supervision of construction projects of magnificent proportion. And one day he was overseeing this magnificent cathedral in London. It might have been St. Paul's, but a journalist thought that it would be interesting to interview some of the workers. So he chose 3, and he asked them this question. He said to the first one, "What are you doing here?" And that first guy said, "I'm cutting stones for 10 shillings a day." The next guy answered, "I'm putting 10 hours in a day on this job." The third one said, "I'm helping Sir Christopher Wren construct one of London's greatest cathedrals." Right attitude, right attitude. So there's that attitude some people have of uselessness. Some people have an attitude of self-pity. And the attitude of self-pity basically says, well, nobody cares, woe is me. And people who wallow in self-pity, they seek sympathy. They're quite often hypochondriacs. And that attitude leads to blame. Blaming somebody. It leads to bitterness. Who wants to be around somebody like that? I don't want to be around people like that. You know, folks don't mind people like that. They just hate their attitudes. And then thirdly, there's this attitude of fear. The fearful attitude says, I need to avoid all risks. And that leads to this suspicious spirit. It leads to paranoia. It leads to evil surmisings, as the Bible calls it. Everybody's out to get you. Fear is the thief. It steals joy. It robs you of peace. I mean, you can't draw the blinds and lock the doors of life. You can't live there. Don't live in the attitude of fear. And then there is the attitude of guilt. Attitude of guilt. Mixed with regret. You know, forever looking back with a sigh and saying, oh, if only I had, or if only I hadn't. And going through life with an attitude of guilt. Well, let me give you one last one today, and that is the attitude of rebellion. In Zechariah 7 and verse number 11, it speaks of folks, and it says, but they refused to hearken. They pulled away the shoulder, and they stopped their ears that they should not hear. You know anyone like that? They refuse to hear, and you try and reason with them. They pull the shoulder away. They stop their ears. That's real mature. That they should not hear. They're uncooperative. Or they get indignant. You know, we have folks, as we ask them to move up in church, they dig in. That's rebellion. That's a bad attitude. That's somebody who's not interested in doing what's best for the overall picture. And by the way, it's the main reason people leave a church. They just got an attitude, an uncooperative attitude, a rebellious attitude. Kind of like Mary, Mary, quite contrary. Remember that nursery rhyme? Just can't cooperate. Belligerent. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And they always shipwreck. So as we go about our day today, what is our attitude? Do we have a good attitude? Do we have a godly attitude? Do we represent the Lord well with our attitude? May I encourage you in the midst of whatever you're going through today to go through it with a good attitude and be a blessing to others. Amen. Have a great day with that thought, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
When we asunder part, it gives us inward pain, but we shall still be joined in heart and home.